Brothers and sisters, in Amos 8:11, Yah said that he shall send a famine, not of water or bread, but of hearing his word. In Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, Yah said that my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. My name is Arya Ben Nasik, and I'm the congregational overseer for the New Covenant Congregation of Israel Tabernacle Elohim. We have a Bible study program and a Sinaitic apologetics school. We'd like to extend an invitation to you to join our Bible study program. It doesn't cost you anything. All you need to provide is 2 hours a week of time, active listening, and a commitment to understand the Bible in its organic form. If you're interested, brothers and sisters, contact me at 704-553-7625. You can send us an email and we'll be more than happy to register you. We want to help you understand what the Bible says on some of the most challenging and controversial topics that, in our opinion, are salvific. Give us a call. May the blessings of Yah be with you. Now, let's go ahead and join our show for today. Shalom. You have to understand the Bible as a whole. And there's a difference between someone who's proficient and a novice. A novice is just going to read. And in that reading, they'll probably get maybe 30%. 30%. But someone who is proficient, as we went over last week, the goal is to be at 100%. So that is a different type of reading. That is a different skill set in reading. And so I want to share that with you, right? I teach the whole Bible and I make statements and give commentary that's very foreign to people's ears. They haven't heard these things before. They haven't heard it in church. They haven't heard it in synagogues. They haven't heard it in academia. They haven't heard it. But I do everything that I possibly can, because I must, in support of my suppositions. Whatever I'm arguing is coming from someplace. And I have data, not just empirical data, but I oftentimes will underscore with experiential data. And that experiential data, it could be common sense oriented, things that's relatable to people, just things that's common sense. So we're going to talk about that, right? Okay, so let's see where I'm going to be at here. We can just set up here. Okay. No, I'm just right here be fine. I got an audio clip up here. Can we hit them lights over there? Appreciate it. Okay, that's my name, Ben Nasik. Well, at least that's my, middle and last name, Nasik. Range of blasphemy. Range of blasphemy. I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Absolutely. I'm just looking at you with your little toe up Bible and everything. Do you have those Bible?
Yeah, this thing's a mess. I'm trying to figure out
I mean, you come in here with your hard work and your labor, putting in time and you reading your little, it look like a coloring book. That's what it looks like.
I got a little happy early on.
Yeah. All right. That's what I do. I mess with folks. Okay, so let's look at this, brothers and sisters. The question that I have from this week is, Aria, you mentioned blasphemy. And I thought blasphemy was when you blaspheme against the Holy Spirit or you say things against the Holy Spirit. I thought blasphemy was something that is speech induced. And again, look, that is essentially the immediate context of blasphemy, right? Something where you have sinned by way of speech. But again, see, that's very limited. Again, you have to understand the whole Bible, the whole Bible. So let's look at this. Numbers 15:27 through 31. But if just one person sins unintentionally, right? That's just sinning out of ignorance. My sister, I'll send you the presentation if you want it. I'll send it to you. Okay. Huh? No, I ain't talking to you. I'm talking to my sister over here in the back. But I will send it to you too if you want it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, if anybody want this, just shoot me an email. Say, hey, Aria, can you send me this? I mean, it ain't nothing dramatic. Trust me. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. But if just one person sins unintentionally, that person must bring a year-old female goat for a sin offering. The priest is to make atonement before the master for the one who erred by sinning unintentionally. And when atonement has been made, that person will be forgiven. Again, this is just sinning out of ignorance. One and the same law applies to everyone who sins unintentionally, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner residing among you. What I said to my brother was that I said, look, he says, Aria, he says, I kind of feel bad even asking you this question. He said, did I miss something? I said, no, you didn't miss anything. I said, because I'm going to be honest with you, brothers in the tabernacle who have been here for years don't even understand blasphemy. I said, and you have been around for a year and a half, so that is a fair question. I said, and so I'll help you with this. But one and the same law applies to everyone who sins unintentionally, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner residing among you. But I want you all to look at this. But anyone who sins defiantly or willfully, presumptuously, whether he's a native-born or foreigner, blasphemes Yah. So, as I said to the brother, you cannot limit blaspheming to a speech act. It's also a physical act. It's a physical act that would, listen to me very carefully, that would counteract, countermand, undermine Elohim's will. Because what we're looking at is sin. Elohim has given to us a law to clearly, you can give that to me. Is that what you got? Yeah, it's okay. Come on. What he has given us are a set of laws that explicates his will, his desire, his needs, his goals, his objectives. The law. Now, let me ask you something. The law. Does anybody know Hebrew for law? Anybody know Hebrew for law? Anybody know the Hebrew for law? Torah, which means instructions. It's first 5 books of the Bible. That means it's Genesis. Y'all with me? It's Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Ka'al vahomir, we went over last week, means from light to heavy. It means to show more. This is Jewish hermeneutics. This is about our culture. I want you all to understand this. This is about our culture. This is about our faith. This is about our God. This is about our people. And our people would be any person, any human being who recognizes that Yah is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all humanity, and he has presented to us a set of protocols with the expectations for us to practice and embrace those protocols. They are non-negotiable. From light to heavy. This is an act. Because Aria, when I'm reading, is that it say, you know, if you say, I said, well, brother, again, I understand. But blasphemy also has another dimension. It's a physical act. You blaspheme against Elohim, or you blaspheme Elohim when you do something that is contrary to his will. To his will. Now we talk about law, but when we talk about will, it's very broad. Law offers us some specificity, and that's great. But we can also talk about will too. But anyone who sins defiantly, whether native born or a foreigner, blasphemes Yah. And this person must be cut off from the people of Israel because they have despised Yah's word and broken his commands. They must surely be cut off. Their guilt remains on them. Next. Ezekiel 20, 27 through 28. And remember, anybody who wants this, I'll send it to you. It's not a problem. Therefore, son of man, speak to the house of Israel and say to them, thus saith the Master Yah, in this also your fathers blaspheme me. How? By dealing treacherously with me. It's action. For when I had brought them into the land that I swore to give them, then wherever they saw any high hill or any leafy tree, they offered their sacrifices, and there they presented the provocation of their offering. There they sent up their pleasing aromas, and there they poured out their drink offerings. Blasphemed, Gadaf. Gadaf. Y'all with me? Gadaf. Jacinius Hebrew Lexicon, an excellent lexicon. This is a lexicon, and there are plenty of lexicons, but this is one of the first lexicons that I cut my teeth on. This is scholars go to. This gadaf may not only be done by words. So remember what I said. What the brother was asking me was, I thought blasphemy, speech. Oh no. And that's probably because you looked up a limited concordance. And that's probably because you did a little search on blasphemy and all little references came up with some speech. But you didn't go deep enough. This gadaf may not only be done by words, but also in what? In action. When men, by boldly and determinedly sinning, mock God and his law. Are y'all with me? Mock God and his law. And the law is represented by 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Brothers and sisters, I brought this up last night in SAPS. I have a friend of mine who's a Reformed Jew. And I want y'all to listen to me. I have a friend of mine, it's really an associate, who's a Reformed Jew. And I asked him, I said, can you name the first 5 books of the Bible? He said, no. So I continued to work out. And then he asked me, he says, what are they? Brothers and sisters, I mean no harm. First 5 books of the Bible, brothers and sisters, this is like letters of the alphabet. This is like counting to 10. If you are within the Hebraic corpus, the Hebraic core is represented by the Hebrew Israelite Society, the Hebrew Roots Society, the Jewish Society, Messianic Jewish Society, and our society, Sinaitic Society. Very first thing that you learn is the first 5 books of the Bible, because that's the covenant. If you all don't know the first 5 books of the Bible now, not a problem, but go home and learn it. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, 5 books. These are the books that Elohim has commanded Moses or Joshua, whoever wrote these 5 books, to pen in stone and papyri his code of ethics, how we are able to identify him, how we are able to understand him, how we are able to meet his expectations. First 5 books of the Bible. My brother says, what are the first 5 books of the Bible? But see, for several months, all I've been hearing is, well, I see, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew, I'm a Jew. And now I'm like Paul, that don't mean nothing. I want to know how you worship and how you serve. That's what I want to know. Gadaf. This may not only be done by words, but also in action. We're talking about blasphemy. You see, when men, by bodily and determinately, I'm determined to be obstinate. I'm determined to be defiant. I'm determined. How? By mocking God. So you got to look at that first. By mocking God. By mocking him and his law. Next slide. Titus 2, 3 through 5. This is what Paul says to the sisters in the assembly. Paul tells Titus, he says, the aged women, likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, slanderers. We just had to expurgate a sister because that's been her reputation since she's been in the tabernacle. And again, I don't say that to be cavalier, but again, I'm being honest. Not given too much wine. It's okay to drink, but it says too much, right? Much. Some churches, they say it's a sin to drink. Some of y'all come from those churches. It's a sin to drink. And you ask, where is that at? Where is that at? Not given too much wine. Aged women, mature women, should be teachers of good things. Look at this. That they may teach the young women, like Sister Keontae over there, little young sister sitting over there with nice little red hair wrap and your mask on. Okay. That they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, domesticated, keepers at home, to be good, obedient to their own husbands. In other words, you can obey your boss at work, but you can't obey your husband at home. Sister, tell you quickly, because boss be giving me a paycheck. What you give me? Obedient to their own husbands. Why? That the word of Elohim be not blasphemed. This is actions. These are actions. If you are not in compliance with Elohim's will, brothers and sisters, this is Elohim's will. What is the constitutionality of the woman, of the aged woman, of the young woman? How does Elohim want his women to look and to act and to behave and to speak? How does he want them to act and behave? So that Elohim's word will not be blasphemed, mocked, ridiculed, laughed at. Hold on. So you tell me that you serve God? Yeah, okay. All right. And so God has no problem with you showing up to work in thongs and pumps and a halter top. Right? That's the God that you serve. See, I've had those conversations. You've had those conversations. We're just talking about, people in general. I mean, these are church-going folks. Let me tell you something. When we were at Sharon Lakes, our first tabernacle, anybody remember the Ethiopian's name that owned the store? Abraham? Thank you. So we moved. We moved over here. And so we subleased. We subleased our old tabernacle to a church, a neo-Christian church. And so I went over there. I think a couple of us, we went over there for a meeting. I think it was Elder Saul, myself, Sister Sania. And so we went into Abraham's store. I want y'all to listen to me. And so Abraham says, my friend, I see people over there, but these are not your people. And I said, well, we moved there, Abraham. He says, I was telling my friend, telling my brother. I said, no, this is not the same people over there. And I said, really? I said, what's going on? I said, the son? He said, I didn't even notice that. I'm just looking at the people. He said, I mean no harm. But I'm looking at the women. The women, they go to church, the butts are hanging out, the breasts are hanging out. I'm saying, wait a minute. What has happened here? We have known these people here for years. The women never come to a place of worship like this. And I said, yeah. Abraham, yeah, no, those are not our sisters. Those are not our sisters. Those are neo-Christians. And so that's how they get down. Different story. You see, there was a change. And Abraham, now very briefly talked about, he says, well, what God? You see that, Antoine? What God? See, he had interest in our God, curious about our God, conversation about our God, because of how we acted and how we behaved when we were at Sharon Lakes. Then it went from night to day to night, right? When we left and a neo-Christian group moved in. This is what Paul is talking about. This is what Elohim is talking about. Elohim is saying, because of you, my name is blasphemed all over the earth because of things that you're doing. And so so we need to just ask, what is the will of God? What is the whole will of God? We just read past it. Law. Oh, okay. And that's it. No. Our ancestors understood that there were sub-themes to the law, that there were subtexts to the law, and that it was necessary for us to dig deeper in the law to understand Elohim holistically. And so this is coming from a Pharisee, Paul. This is what Dr. Robert Gundry says, and those of you who are in SAPS, you're very familiar with his name. Okay, Gundry says, for the sake of evangelism, Paul doesn't want God's word, which is the gospel, to be slandered, defamed, or maligned by young wives throwing off domesticity. Okay, thank you. Domesticity and chastity. Look at this. Hold on. Well, watch this though. Perhaps under the influence of a first century Roman women's liberation movement. A number of Hebrews said to me, Arya, I like, but one of the things that I don't like is that, you assert a lot of scholarship. Brothers and sisters, I want you to listen to me very carefully. If you ever write up a treatise, if you ever construct a thesis, and you present it to me, and I don't see no scholarship, it's going in the trash can. I'm going to tell you that right now. Because what you're giving me is your opinion. What you're giving me is your exegesis of a passage that might be eisegesis, something that you read into. The reason that you underscore your arguments with scholarship, brothers and sisters, is because these people have been studying certain topics a lot longer than you have. They have more resources than you have. So they are called scholars for a reason. You have a scholarly composition for a reason. We want to look at primary sources, secondary sources. And so look, a lot of your scholars are also historians, especially when we talk about theology. They want to know and understand why certain statements are being made in the Old and New Testament. In order to ascertain that information, typically you're going to go out and research primary sources, primary data. Something written in the first century, second century, something written by a magistrate, a governor, a person, or something that's going to tell you what's going on, which is then going to help us appreciate the motivation for an author's statement or epistle. So, scholar here says, perhaps under the influence of a first century Roman women's liberation movement, says here, for outside Christian circles, such liberation was coming under criticism. And you can look this up and see that, you did have Roman women in the first century. There's a lot of things going on. You all have this study in SAPS. But breaking away from the normative of headship, being in subjection to headship. Paul is saying, look, I understand how the Gentiles get down, but that's not how we get down. This is what Elohim expects you to do. And if you don't do it, then you're going to be blaspheming the word of Elohim. Y'all with me? Next slide. So we talked about this last week. This is midrashic sin. Remember, we're looking deeper into a passage to understand what our ancestors are seeing, to understand what Elohim's will is. So Paul says here, flee from sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, and that's true. I mean, the sins that we commit are essentially, outside of the body. These are things that we do against other people's bodies or other people's persons. Paul uses body here for a particular reason. We'll look at it. We have a couple of suppositions from this passage. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body. Here we go. But the sexually immoral person sins against his own body. He sins against himself. He sins against himself. It doesn't sin against Yah because, again, there is no law to legislate certain behaviors. My brother, go and read 1 Corinthians. I want you all to, let's see, am I jumping? Let's see, maybe. Let me see. I'm going to go to 1 Corinthians. Uh, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, and this is what Paul says here. Brother, read 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 12. Read 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 12 for me.
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 12. All things are lawful for me.
Okay, all things. In other words, whatever Elohim has not illegalized or made illegal, they are therefore lawful. Are y'all with me? Everybody understand that? It's therefore lawful. But go ahead.
All things are lawful for me.
Go ahead.
But not all things are helpful.
But it may not be expedient. It may not be prudent. It may not be, would you just say helpful?
But not all things are helpful.
But not all things are helpful. But not all things are helpful. You got another translation for me? I think I can show you how to move quicker on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can show you that. I think so. I think so. Let me have you Speedy Gonzalez.
Yeah, this is an old computer though. Book of 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 12. You say, this is the New Living Translation.
Yeah, that's fine.
You say, I am allowed to do anything.
Yes.
But not everything is good for you.
But not everything is good for you. I like that. Y'all with me?
And even though I'm allowed to do anything,
Uh-huh.
I must not become a slave to anything.
Oh, snap. That's building up my narrative. Go back and read what Paul says here. See, I'm helping my brother understand why I call things blasphemous, Martin. Why, some people say, Aria, practically everything to you is blasphemous. Yes, it is. And just ask me why. Just ask me why. I will explain to you why I say the things that I say and do the things that I do. I have no problem with that. This is about learning. But read that piece again for me, please.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 12, New Living Translation. You say, I am allowed to do anything.
Yes, I'm allowed to do anything. In other words, the law is not in the law. It's not in the law. It's not in the law. I'm going to give you, brothers, something to talk about by the grill. Go ahead.
You say, I am allowed to do anything.
Yes.
But not everything is good for you.
But not everything is good for you. The law does not say thou shalt not drink poison. Thou shalt not sniff glue. Some people sniff glue. Thou shalt not sniff embalming fluid. Back in the day, cats would get high off of, sniffing embalming fluid. The law don't say that. But is it good for you? Paul says it's not good for you. But I want you all to hear what the brother just said. Read this piece again. I want you all to see if you can hear anything in particular that he's talking about. Go ahead, read that.
You say, I am allowed to do anything.
Yeah.
But not everything is good for you.
Watch this now.
And even though I am allowed to do anything.
Even though I'm allowed to do anything that the law does not legislate, watch this.
I must not become a servant to anything.
But
this says I must not become a slave to anything.
You can use slave in here, brother. It's fine. Okay.
I got a sensitivity to that word.
I understand. Well, what is he saying here? I must not become a slave to anything. What does that mean? Can anybody help me? Be under his authority. That's good. Who? I will not be addicted to it. Y'all with me? He says, although I can, it may not be helpful, beneficial to me, for me. D.S. Jones, by alienating it from the service of him to whom it belongs, by incorporating it with the degradation of another, by staining the flesh and the body, by subtly poisoning the inmost sanctities of his own being. St. Paul is here thinking mainly, however, if not exclusively, of the moral injury and defilement of self, of how you hurt yourself, of how you hurt yourself. Be patient with me. He says here, Gundry, against his own body, stresses the physical damage caused by sexual immorality, and against his own body stresses the foolishness of such self-inflicted damage. Is that okay? Stresses the foolishness of such self-inflicted damage. This is the reason why we went here last week, right? To talk about sinning against yourself. And again, where we need to be is to understand Sinaiticism holistically, to see the text and to see beyond the text. We talked about Jewish hermeneutics, didn't we? We talked about paris. We talked about remez, which is our Hebrew term for a passage that is hinting at something bigger, light to heavy. Durash, then to seek it out. Then to seek it out. What I'm saying, brothers and sisters, is this. We need to learn how to be better. We need to learn how to be the servant, the steward, the man, woman that Elohim expects us to be. Next slide. New Testament commentator Wilhelm Meyer says, for his own bodily frame as the immediate object which he affects in a sinful way, whose moral purity and honor he hurts and wounds by his action. He dishonors his own body, which is the organ and object of his sin. You are hurting your own body, which is the sin. Now remember, Elohim says that if you're doing something out of ignorance, he said, no problem, I'm going to take care of that. But once you have come into the knowledge of what I expect of you, and you then continue to do it, he said, now you're blaspheming against me. James says, remember this, brothers and sisters. This is something we know in the culture, James saying. He said, it is sin to know what you ought to do and then don't do it. But watch this. You fast may say, well, Arya, why you call it sin? You fast, I'm not calling it sin, brother. I'm going to say, you fast, take me out of the equation, brother. Take me out of the equation. I say to you fast, this is what you all's problem is. You factor me into all of your sensitivities. You factor me into the equation of your thoughts. What you need to be factoring in is the message. And can the message be tested? Is the message measurable? That's the question. Next. Life force. Life force. We're in the book of Genesis. Genesis is part of the Torah, is it not? Maybe I'm going to do a little bit of remez and a little bit of derash. Danielle and I talked about this last week. Let's look at this. Then Yah Elohim formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. So, it is Elohim's will for you to live. So he gave you what we refer to as neshmat, from the Hebrew word neshama, which means to breathe. Which means to breathe. Elohim's will is for you to live as his imager. That is his will. That is his desire. And as you are living, he is giving you a set of commandments of how to live, to fulfill his image, not your image, but his image. Remember in Saps last night we read who is the archetype?
No.
Yah is the archetype.
Adam.
Right? No, Yah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Adam, yes. Adam takes on the image of the archetype. The first type, arche, first. The first type, which is Elohim. I need for Sinaiticists, people in the community that I worship, I fellowship with, to dig deep into the text. To dig deep. To be better. To be cleaner. To understand what it is to understand. You understand? Look at this. Leviticus 17:11. For the life of the flesh is in the blood. We talked about this last week. Remember, brother says, okay, you know, I'm a very respectful brother. He said, I just don't understand. He said, look, man, because I was in church and blasphemy. I come from another Hebrew Israelite assembly, and blasphemy is blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. I show up to Tabernacle Elohim, and you come up with something blasphemous, and now I'm confused. I'm going to unconfuse you. Not a problem. For the life of the flesh is in the blood. That neshmat is in the blood. Y'all with me? That neshmat is in the blood. And I have given it for you on the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that makes atonement for the life. Right? What you got for me? Cigars and cigarettes. Somebody said, daggone, I knew it. This is from National Cancer Institute. Cigar smoke, like cigarette smoke, contains toxic and cancer-causing chemicals. Now, we set the precedent by going to Corinthians, says, you harming yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Paul says, although it's not against the law, it may not be helpful to me. It may be harmful to me. And so if it's harmful to you, Paul says that it's sin to you. And Arya circles back and says, well, if it is harmful to you, then it's sinful to you. And for you to do it knowingly, then it's blasphemy to Elohim. You see the setup? Here we go. Cigar smoke, like cigarette smoke, contains toxic and cancer-causing chemicals that are harmful to both smokers and non-smokers. Cigar smoke is possibly more toxic than a cigarette smoke. People said to me, look, man, look, I don't smoke cigarettes, I smoke cigars. I said, brother, that's worse. All cigar and cigarette smokers, whether or not they inhale, directly expose their lips, mouth, tongue, throat, and larynx to smoke and its toxic and cancer-causing chemicals. In addition, when saliva containing the chemicals in tobacco smoke is swallowed, the esophagus is exposed to carcinogens. These exposures probably account for the similar oral and esophageal cancer risk seen among cigar smokers and cigarette smokers. These are the ingredients that we find in our cigars and cigarettes. Let's just see. I can't even pronounce half these words. Acetaldehyde, used to produce acetic acid, and butadiene, both toxic substances in their own right. Acrylonitrile, used in manufacture of plastic, toxic in small doses. For amylbenzyl, use prohibited in many countries in the world. That's what you got in your cigars and cigarettes. Arsenic, potent poison, highly regulated use in all countries in the world. Benzene is a toxin used as a pesticide. I mean, I know sometimes we can be a rat, but you know. It's also used in gasoline and explosives manufacture. Beryllium, highly toxic substance that can cause a pulmonary condition called chronic berylosis. 1/3 of sufferers will die from it, while the survivors are left disabled. Now, this is what y'all smoking. Cadmium, lethal dose for a rat is 25 milligrams. Cadmium is used to produce batteries and in processes of nuclear fission. Okay. Ethylene oxide, known carcinogen that also causes acute poisoning in higher doses. Formaldehyde, also used for preserving dead tissue in embalming fluids. Furan increases the risk of hepatocellular and bile duct tumors. Hydrogen, used in rocket fuel, fuel cells and pesticides. Isoprene, used in production of rubber. Lead causes microcytic anemia and interferes with cognition. Polonium-210, highly toxic radioactive isotope. O-toluidine causes a DNA damage which results in tumors. And you can go to lungcancer.org, CDC. You can go to all these places and you're going to find all of these chemicals. All these sites list all these chemicals. And I'm asking, why would I want to smoke something that is putting all of this deadly stuff in me? Let me continue to develop my thesis here. Go ahead. Mary Jane. The THC in marijuana acts on your brain. You know, I think last week we talked about there being a difference between medical marijuana and recreational marijuana, right? And yeah, there is. The medical marijuana is the CBD, right? This is what helps with the medicinal. The THC, which is the recreational, this is what gives you your high. This is what people are looking for, right? So just throw out that passage where Paul says to the sisters, be sober-minded, right? Be rational-headed. Not a law against it. Well, look at what I've premised with. That's what I'm saying, brothers and sisters. THC causes brain cells to release dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical that is involved with mood and thinking. I see a lot of, and I'm just being frank, please. I see a lot of hypersensitivity with people who smoke marijuana, have smoked marijuana. There's certainly a cognition issue that I know for a fact. There's a lot of downsides to individuals who are running behind THC. I'm just asking, do you think that that is within your best interest? And let's not say, Ari, I smoke it I smoke it because I need to relax. You need to relax before you go to work? Because you're smoking at 9 o'clock a.m. You're smoking at 8 o'clock a.m. You're smoking on your lunch break. I'm just asking, is this the type of image we have been called to display of our Father? Just thought. We'll see. Let's see. It is also called the feel-good brain chemical. Using marijuana may cause pleasurable effects such as feeling high, pleasant sensations, or very relaxed. Marijuana intoxication. Marijuana intoxication. Peter comes back and says, be sober-minded, because you know not when your master will return. He says, be alert and be aware. Having an increased appetite called the munchies. Increased sensations of sight, hearing, and taste. Unpleasant effects. Mary Jane can affect your mood. You may have feelings of panic or anxiety, and I'm going to tell you, hypersensitivity and paranoia. I'm telling you. It can affect how your brain processes things around you. You may have false beliefs, delusions, become very fearful or confused, see or hear things that are not there, hallucinations, comes from your marijuana. But this is what people are looking for. That's what they are seeking. It can cause your brain not to work as well. For example, you may not be able to concentrate or pay attention at work or at school. Your memory may weaken. Your coordination may be affected, such as with driving a car. Your judgment and decision making can also be affected. As a result, you may do risky things such as drive while high or have unsafe sex. Marijuana's other health effects include bloodshot eyes, increased heart rate and blood pressure, infections such as sinusitis, bronchitis, and asthma in heavy users. Irritation of the airways causing narrowing spasm. Sinusitis is breathing, right? Bronchitis, bronchotubes, it's the lungs, right? Asthma is the lungs. You smoking on something that is affecting what Elohim has given you to sustain life so that you could glorify him. You are putting something in your system, right, that is designed to attack what he has given you to glorify him. Now, we just, again, as we're reading passages, we're thinking about these things. Irritation of the airways, something, marijuana, cigarette, it's always attacking the air, the oxygen. Irritation of the airways causing narrowing or spasms. Sore throat. Oh, weakening of the immune system. This certainly ain't a time to have a weakened immune system, I don't think. I mean, I'm taking vitamin C, D, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, every vitamin I get my hands on. Revelation 21:8. But as for the cowardly, or the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. Word of interest here, sorcerers, pharmakeos, to drug people into living by their what? Illusions. Those who seek illusions, hallucinations, which we call getting high. What I'm saying is that Elohim may be asking you to ask yourself a question. What can Puff Puff give to you that Elohim cannot give to you by his word? His word is not sufficient for you that you got to go out here and smoke on something to transition into a state of euphoria that's not helpful to you, that's harmful to you, that hurts you. Because cigarette is a drug, cigar is also a drug. All of them are drugs. They have chemicals. These are chemically induced to bring you into a condition where you are high. Your cigarettes. People have to have a cigar. They have to have a cigarette. You all know people, they got to have a cigarette. They got to have a cigarette. Go crazy if they don't get a cigarette, because that tobacco has been manipulated to induce that addiction. Paul said, there ain't nothing around me that is going to bring me in the bondage of its power. Nothing. And we're just asking, who are we and whose are we? How are we living our life? We're just asking. Well, something from my vantage point is so commonsensical. I go back to it can affect how your brain processes things around you. You may have false beliefs, delusions, become very fearful or confused, see or hear things that are not there, hallucinations. I've seen this with individuals who have smoked weed and have eaten weed. We just had a brother a couple of months ago put some weed in the brownies, and I told you he was trying to climb the wall. Now, look, I didn't bring anything. I didn't say anything. I just listened to a story. Okay. But again, why do you do this to yourself? So my brother wants to understand, y'all, why is this blasphemous? Why would you say it's blasphemy? Next. Go ahead and click that video. Can you give me some volume?
Take a look at these two sets of lungs. This set is pink and healthy.
That's my lung.
They represent the lungs of a healthy person. But this set doesn't look so great. They represent the lungs of someone who has smoked a pack of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes, every day for 20 years. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the healthy lungs. They're being inflated with air, just like when we breathe. As they fill up with air, both lungs expand like they should and push oxygen into your bloodstream. We need oxygen for our body to work. When we breathe, air passes through our nose or mouth.
We need oxygen. Why would you put something in your body that is designed to deplete the oxygen? So I say again, that is blasphemous. That you have knowledge that what you're doing is counteracting what God has given you to live and to have a viable life. That's you sinning against yourself. I know we got a number of brothers and sisters whose lungs look like that black lung over there. Has to be. Has to be. Go ahead.
Into our trachea or windpipe. In the trachea, air passes cilia. Those are tiny hairs that keep dirt and mucus out of the lungs. From the trachea, air passes into two large tubes. Each tube splits off into many smaller tubes. At the end of these smaller tubes is a cluster of tiny air sacs. There are over 600 million air sacs in our lungs. Imagine how small they must be. Each air sac is covered in small blood vessels that take the blood directly.
Air, 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 air. Elohim wants you to breathe. He wants you to breathe. Cigarettes is going to inhibit that. Cigars is going to inhibit that. Marijuana is going to inhibit that. Go ahead.
To your heart. The oxygenated blood goes directly to your heart, and your heart pumps it to all the cells in your body. Now, back to the smoker's lungs. These represent the lungs of someone who smoked for 20 years. These lungs are a blackish brown color because of the tar that comes from each cigarette. Tar is a sticky black substance that is created when some chemicals burn and melt together. The tar created by burning tobacco is similar to the tar that is used on roads. Tar in your lungs may lead to lung problems that can make it hard to breathe. Even though vaping doesn't force tar into your lungs, it does cause your lungs to get inflamed and clogged with blood, pus, and other fluids. The chemicals in cigarettes also cause lung cancer. If you look here, lung cancers have started to form. They start in the cells that line the surface of the lungs, like this white area. The lower portion of this lung doesn't inflate. That is what lung diseases like COPD and emphysema look like. People with these diseases find it hard to breathe, and they struggle with even the smallest, easiest activities like walking. Which set of lungs would you like working for you? The choice seems pretty clear.
That's what I've been saying. That's what I've been saying. Next. Should I still smoke?